How's it going, everybody? And welcome to the Liberty Bowl. So, the backlash is continuing for Anheuser-Busch, and for what seems like the first time, the mantra "Get woke, go broke" is finally ringing true. As I'm sure you're all aware, Bud Light over the past few weeks has been the target of a boycott over partnering over the TikTok tranny known as Dylan Mulvaney, insulting their overwhelmingly conservative consumer base and effectively becoming the first corporate casualty from the right in the culture war against the woke mind disease that threatens to tear apart the very fabric of our nation. All right, so we're going to go ahead and talk about my thoughts on the whole boycotting of Bud Light, the whole Dylan Mulvaney fucking movement, the whole ESG fucking everything going on with all that bullshit right now. But as always, before we get into that, put your beers down, raise up your bongs, because we're going to get into this. This one's for you, Dilly Dilly. Real man of genius.
Love ya! Cheers! Go team! Whatever team you love, I love too. Okay. Love ya. Okay, break a leg. Woo!
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in foot.
We're losing our democracy!
More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
Wake up!
Before we get into that, let's get into this. Alrighty, so with the boycott in full swing right now, we're starting to, come to some realizations on the more right-wing conservative party as to the power that is, I guess, the coming together and basically using democracy or these democratic tactics in order to essentially affect change in society, right? So as we know, the culture war, it's full on, the MAGA conservative party versus the woke, and then of course there's all the normies in between and stuff like that, and the NPCs and stuff like that. But either way, as per the actual culture war, it is essentially the MAGA movement versus the woke movement, right? So what is causing all of these companies to go woke? The Anheuser-Busch, I mean, even down to the point where during Pride Month, even NASCAR, notoriously conservative, chew spit in NASCAR, even is toting the rainbow flag on their logo, right? So obviously, if you're any bit cued into what the whole is going on in the whole political sphere, it is through this ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and governance, right? And it's basically the way that the Marxists are basically using capitalism to undermine capitalism, right? So essentially, it's all these BlackRock's, Vanguard, all these huge index firms that basically take up all of your retirement money, all of your 401ks, things like that, and basically they go ahead and choose how to invest your money for you, right? And so the way that they choose to invest your money for you, again, it's the way that they use capitalism to undermine capitalism, is by basically pushing these woke agendas, right? Pushing agendas that basically they set aside more finance for these companies that adhere to these certain dictatorial environmental, social, and governance scores between from these finance companies, right? So essentially what ESG is doing is basically, if a company wants any sort of financing from these major investment firms, they need to basically toe the line and basically do what their major investors ask of them, right? Their major investors being people like BlackRock and Vanguard. It forces them to basically push their agenda, which their agenda is essentially they like the Chinese model, where basically the people in power have absolute and total control over the lives and aspects of essentially the livestock or the people, right? So essentially, what they're doing is they're kind of forcing companies to have different sort of diversity hires, right? They're forcing companies to basically have these sort of woke marketing, administrative people and stuff like that. Basically, they're making you appoint certain people that may not even fully align or even slightly align with the company and what their mission statements are, what their values are. They may not align in any way with that, but still, you must put them on your board, and they must have some sort of say in the way that your company is run. All right, so by forcing these companies to go ahead and put in these diversity hires and stuff, this is basically how they are able to push their woke agenda. And as we're seeing here, it's clearly not going over too well for them. So go ahead and check out this little video clip here of the I don't know, some sort of advertising executive over there at Anheuser-Busch, who basically was the genius behind Dylan Mulvaney and putting his fucking face on a Bud Light can, and basically partnering with this dude for I don't know, whatever reason. But go ahead and check out the clip.
A businesswoman. I had a really clear job to do when I took over Bud Light, and it was, this brand is in decline. It's been in decline for a really long time, and if we do not attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there will be no future for Bud Light. So I had this super clear mandate. It's like, we need to evolve and elevate this incredibly iconic brand. And what I brought to that was a belief in, okay, what does evolve and elevate mean? It means inclusivity. It means shifting the tone. It means having a campaign that's truly inclusive and feels lighter and brighter and different and appeals to women and to men. And representation is at sort of the heart of evolution. You've got to see people who reflect you in the work. And we had this hangover. I mean, Bud Light had been kind of a brand of bratty, kind of out of touch humor. And it was really important that we had another approach.
All right. Yeah. Clearly she is absolutely out of touch with the general, conservative consumer base of Anheuser-Busch, right? It's clearly a horrible decision. As we're able to see financially, it's cost them, over $6 billion already just within this last, week or so that they've, since they've partnered with Dylan Mulvaney, and the boycott has effectively, been going on, right? So to deal with the backlash, Anheuser-Busch keeps sending out these kind of little half-hearted, apologies, right? So we have this one right here. I'm not even going to bother reading it. If you guys want to check it out, it's right there. But they're putting out all these little half-hearted apologies, where they kind of quote stuff, where they kind of cite stuff like, oh, I'm an ex-military veteran and stuff like that, and this I'm more American than most, blah 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 bullshit, whatever. Like I said, it's half-hearted apologies, and it's basically saying that we recognize that this this kind of doesn't fit with our values and our core customer base and shit like that. And basically they're just they're doing the thing that these companies do when they don't want to actually say that they're sorry, but still they have to put out some sort of statement, and basically they're just stating the problem. That's all they're doing. They're not, saying that they're sorry for it. They're basically just saying, what we did was we partnered with somebody that we probably shouldn't have, and it's costing us, a lot of our consumer base and stuff like that. And that's what the problem here is. And yeah, that's what happened. They never actually do say that they're sorry, right? So instead of actually saying that they're sorry, they're continuing to put out things like this statement, and then they actually just put out this weirdly patronizing, patriotic commercial here just the other day. All right, go ahead and check this one out.
Let me tell you a story about a beer rooted in the heart of America, found in a community where a handshake is a sure contract, brewed for those who found opportunity in challenge and hope in tomorrow, raised by generations, willing to sip, share, risk, remember. This is a story bigger than beer. This is the story of the American spirit.
All right, so Donald Trump Jr. has actually been getting a bit of backlash lately because pretty early on into this whole boycott, he's pretty much been calling for an end to it. All right, so he's basically saying that this is, essentially a tool of the left, boycotts, things like that, that's essentially a tool of the left, that we shouldn't be attacking the entire company. We should essentially be going after the individual that is responsible for making the, marketing mistake, and basically getting Anheuser-Busch to partner up with Dylan Mulvaney. And he basically points out the fact that Anheuser-Busch has traditionally been more or less a patriotic American, home brand company, right? And he's absolutely correct.
People are pissed, and justifiably so. Anheuser-Busch is an iconic American company. This is Budweiser, with the Clydesdales and with the football and bald eagles and, the Bud Bowl and, like, real men of genius.
Rock, flag, and eagle!
This is where they were. So what are they doing? What on earth are they doing with a trans TikToker in a bathtub? It's bizarre. Is this a one-off colossal screw-up, or is it something bigger? This could be just the act of one rogue, woke lunatic in a marketing department filled with leftist staffers.
But the thing is, with Anheuser-Busch, essentially they're being made an example of right now, right? This is the power of the populace. This is the power of the people. This is basically us telling them that we are not going to, support you with our dollars if you are going to basically support this ideology that does not align with American values in any way, shape, or form, right? So they essentially are in a bit of a pickle here, right? So they have, on one side, do they, appease their customer base and basically get back to business as usual? As they've pointed out, as many conservative people have pointed out many times, once we get an apology, once we get a denouncement of wokeness and ESG from Anheuser-Busch, it's game on. We're having Bud Light parties. We're fucking throwing huge events. Bud Light just, catering everything. We're, essentially, as soon as they denounce wokeness and ESG, they are completely back in business. They are completely back in the good graces of the Conservative Party. And the reason for that is because they basically would be a trendsetter. They would basically be the first company, the first major company that, is basically publicly traded, that would be the first people to denounce this whole woke agenda. All right. So as I mentioned, toward the beginning, this whole woke agenda is being pushed by these companies like, BlackRock, Vanguard. And essentially what they do is they make it to where, you have to push these sort of agendas. Even if you end up losing money from your customer base, it's okay. We will back you with, investor cash. Right. So essentially we're putting the choice on Anheuser-Busch to either, do you satisfy your customer base or do you satisfy the investors?
And we looked into the political giving and lobbying history of Anheuser-Busch. And guess what? They actually support Republicans. In woke corporate America, Anheuser-Busch supports Republicans. Last cycle, their employees and their PAC gave about 60% to Republicans and 40% to Democrats. And that's literally almost unheard of in corporate America, where it's really easy to go woke, where they do so constantly, where there's a consequence to actually being a conservative. So 60-40 to the conservative side is kind of a big deal.
All right. So Donald Trump Jr. also points out the fact that when it comes to donations and lobbying, essentially they have, they have I think it's like a 60-40, something like that, lean toward conservative, donating to conservatives, to the GOP, as opposed to the Democrats. But either way, the whole thing is that this is not about who, contributes the most to the Republican Party. If anything, this isn't even about the Republican Party. If anything, the Republican Party, the old Republican Party, is falling apart. And like I say, this whole culture war, it's between basically the woke ideology and the new ideology of MAGA. Right? Basically, MAGA is what is replacing the grand old party. Right?
Anheuser-Busch. So here's the deal. Anheuser-Busch totally shit the bed with this Dylan Mulvaney thing. I'm not, though, for destroying an American and iconic company for something like this. Trust me, the memes have been so good. I'm sitting there chopping that. Like, I want it. But like when I actually look into it, I'm not going to blame the whole company for the inaction or the stupidity of someone in a marketing campaign that got woke as hell.
So, essentially, the way that it is the boycott continues. until they step up to the plate, denounce wokeness, be a trendsetter, and basically be the first domino to fall in crumbling their whole woke leftist agenda, right? This is how we are able to fight back, people. This is basically the idea of democracies, right? So essentially we have to fight fire with fire. We have to basically beat them at their own games, right? And so this is how we do it. So their donations, essentially, they don't mean anything to us. We are not Republican Party anymore, right? We are the populist party. We are the people. We are the people of American culture. They're the people of freedom, right? Okay, now real quick, I just wanted to kind of touch on the topic of Dylan Mulvaney in general, right? So Dylan Mulvaney, to me, is the symptom of a sick society. And I don't mean sick as in like we're disgusting, something like that. I mean a sick society is in a society that is not well, a society that is terminal, a society that is dying, right? So Dylan Mulvaney, basically, in my opinion, the entire trans movement, it's very it's almost like a darker version of the whole flat earth movement and stuff like that, where basically, in my opinion, the idea of flat earth movement wasn't so much based actually flat earth, people actually believing in flat earth. I believe the people that originated the idea of the flat earth movement were basically people that just seek to undermine some basic fundamental that we all basically know to be true, and put doubt on it to basically, it's basically kind of an experiment of gullibility to see basically who would buy into something so ridiculous, right? So it essentially opened up the way for what and many of us are starting to view as a sort of a eugenics movement, right? To where basically they're targeting these people that aren't of a fully developed mind, aka children, and people that are basically of a a developmentally disabled mind, right? Basically people with autism, stuff like that. And they're basically indoctrinating them into this, again, basic fundamental thing that everybody knows, down to children. They're aware of the fact that boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. They're aware of the difference between male and female, even if just to the slightest degree, it's they're aware of it, right? And so basically they're seeking to undermine this basic fundamental in these people's minds that are basically impressionable and gullible for the most part. And again, this is a more dark version of this experiment on gullibility, to where this is more a full-on eugenics movement, to where basically the goal is to basically get these people to essentially break themselves, right? So previous eugenics movements and stuff like that has basically been pushed through physical force, stuff like that. Basically the way that they've tried to fix society, or basically heal society of the people that are basically hangers on and stuff like that, the people that are the more or less unproductives in society, the essentially unproductive mindless eaters and stuff like that. The way that that has been traditionally tried to get rid of them was through force, right? So essentially the new subtle way to essentially exterminate this section of the population is to convince them to kill themselves, right? So that's my my thoughts on the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing, the whole trans movement. Dylan Mulvaney is essentially just the poster child, and whether or not Dylan Mulvaney is a witting participant in this sort of demoralization of society, this sort of general spreading of this mental sickness throughout society, I don't know. But either way, Dylan Mulvaney is the clear symptom of a society that is sick, right? So that's my thoughts on the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing and the whole trans movement, and why they're doing this whole ESG shit in the first place. Well, I appreciate you guys stopping by, checking out this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video out. Yeah, I appreciate all you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you feel like I missed anything, if there's a angle to this that maybe I'm not looking at, go ahead and let me know. Well, I appreciate all you guys. Fuck off.